This video is pictures of our first 3 days in Germany, September 19th to 21st, and includes sites at Radinger, Dusseldorf, Deschenhol, and Zanten. We arrived at the Dusseldorf airport fairly early in the morning after having been up for over 24 hours, so the first day was short. We had a flat for the week in Radinger, a small town near Dusseldorf, and we spent the morning exploring the old town. We later found out that there's a restaurant in the little brown and white building in the front there, and we ate there later in the week, and it was really nice. The food was good, and the ambiance was fantastic. It was cozy and sort of rustic feeling. So if you're ever in Radinger, I definitely recommend checking it out. We also stopped by an old church at the other end of the old town. Here's my sister Katrina, her husband Casey, and me in front of it. We didn't go into the church, but the outside was pretty. By the time we got to the church and back, we were fairly hungry and really tired, so we set out in search of a quick dinner, and we decided to go to McDonald's. We passed this thing on the way to McDonald's, and I have no idea what it is other than kind of cool looking stuff in the distance. On day 2, we headed into Dusseldorf, and we spent much of the day at this castle, Schloss Benrath. I thought it was really pretty. Casey was not impressed by the pink. The backside's even nicer than the front of the castle, in my opinion. Schloss, by the way, is one of the two words I know in German for castle. Schloss is basically the equivalent of a palace, and Berg is the equivalent of a fortress. The palace and its two auxiliary buildings are a tiny part of the Schloss Park. The gardens are probably more impressive than the inside of the palace. There's a huge reflecting pool in the back behind the palace. A really big garden off to the side with lots of little sections, this bridge being in one of the little pretty sections on the side. And then my personal favorite, there's a large lake out front. The actual reason that we were in Germany was for the wedding of a family friend, Micah. And when we told her that we'd spent the day at Schloss Benrath and that we thought it was really pretty, she was happy about it. Turns out she really likes the place and was having her official wedding pictures taken there. So she was excited that we'd seen it and that we liked it. I don't have any photos of the inside of the castle, just all these ones of the outside. We did take a tour of the inside, but they were really protective of this place, so not only were you not supposed to take photographs inside, you couldn't even walk on the floors with your regular shoes. This was the only place we went to that was like this. They gave us these huge house slippers that we had to slide on over our shoes, and they were really slippery, so we were slipping and sliding all over the place. Here's a swan in the lake out front. At least I think the swan was in this lake. And after we finished at Schloss Benrath, we walked around the Dusseldorf Old Town pedestrian area for a while. The highlight was this gate, or a tour from the old city wall that was there. It's the Radinger tour. I don't know, maybe it led to the pass to get to Radinger or something. And there was a park with a lake behind it, and that lake might be where the swan came from. For our third day, we started at Deschenhol. Deschenhol is a cavern. I'd seen a brochure for it while we were at Schloss Benrath. The reason I really wanted to go was because the brochure showed pictures of cave paintings, and I'd never seen any of those. I was kind of disappointed to discover that the cave paintings were just replicas of famous cave paintings on a wall in the little museum. I think there are some actual cave paintings down in the cavern, but not on the part you're allowed to go into on the public tour. The rest of the museum was a little bit weird, or maybe it just seemed that way because I couldn't read any of the signs that might have helped it all make sense. The dinosaurs I understand, since everything was about geology and paleontology. The unicorn, however, I cannot explain. I guess it's just supposed to look cool. It ties in fairly nicely with the little dragon outside, though. He was hiding in a nook in the rocks on the path leading to the cavern entrance. We couldn't take pictures inside the cavern, so I scanned some images from the guidebook we got just to prove that there really is a cavern and I'm not making things up. Most of the guidebooks and postcards we bought so that way we'd have images of places we weren't allowed to take photographs are with my sister in Texas, since she doesn't have a dissertation to work on and has more time to scan it all. So don't expect too many of these kinds of images from me for now. After Deschenhol, we went to the town of Zanten. Zanten was built next to the ruins of a fairly major Roman city. The Roman city is long gone, but since Zanten was built next to it, not on top of it, they've done some archaeological work and are now building reconstructions of ruins on top of where the original Roman city was. The reconstructed ruins may not be real, but they make for a pretty nice little tourist attraction. Here we are playing tourists at the temple. You don't have to take my word for it, though. See? It's really us. Here's Katrina, Casey, and me. Since the ruins aren't real ruins, they can play around more with making things look like what it would have in terms of paint and stuff, instead of like the real ruins would look now with all the paint faded away. Katrina took this photo that includes me taking a photo, and here's the one I took. It gives a bit more of a close-up on the wall. I really liked the temple columns. They did a nice job of showing the paint that would have been there while still keeping with the ruined feel of the place. Of course, I never did figure out why it had to be ruins, since they were doing reconstructions. Why not just reconstruct to its heyday rather than to a ruined state? No Roman city, fake or real, ruined or heyday, would be complete without snazzy plumbing. Here are some wood carvings of different methods of transportation. I think I was more impressed by the details of the carvings than whatever historical lesson I was supposed to learn from them. But again, that may be due to my inability to read German. And you can ignore the random tourist petting the donkey. They had a nice little wall running all around the complex. The best part of it was the impressive north gate. At least, I think it was the north gate. North, south, east, west, pick a direction. Mom and Dad are heading for the archways with the metal grating that would have been the main way into town. Casey is heading for the stairs to get up to the floor with the windows above the arches and the promenade above that. In the floor with the windows is the machinery for raising the gates, and the promenade level offered an amazing view. Here's a close-up of the church, which was actually taken from a slightly different location later on, but close enough. And a close-up of the other thing that I'm not 100% certain what it was, but it looks cool. This building is pretty cool. The lower section on the right with the glass wall is where the public baths were. Inside there's an archaeological dig where you can see the remains of the baths, rather than the reconstructed stuff that's everything else here. The taller part of the building was a museum on Roman history that was pretty well done and included signs in English, so I knew what was going on. Zanten is close to the German border with the Netherlands, so there were also signs in Dutch, and sometimes I tried reading those rather than the English ones, and I was doing pretty well with it. These rocks are outside the museum. When Zanten was built up in the Middle Ages, people would take already carved rocks from the Roman ruins rather than quarry new stones. All of these stones are ones that were originally used in Roman buildings, then used in medieval buildings, and then removed and brought over here at some point. I'm not sure what this is, thanks to my inability to read German and the lack of English signs at most of the outside stuff. It was just the next thing we came to after the baths in the museum. All I can tell you for sure is that there was an oven, and some kind of turny pushy pulley thing that I couldn't make move. Not even the time-honored method of sticking the tongue out to aid concentration enabled me to figure it out, so I'm voting it doesn't actually work. Next to the mystery shed was a small hedge maze that my parents are exploring. At the center of the maze was this pretty little area. Of course, the maze was really tiny, and this was actually beside it, and you could get to it by going around rather than through the maze, but that's cheating. Last but not least is the amphitheater, one of those other things that no Roman city is complete without. This amphitheater even had a Roman, well, a statue of one anyway. Here's the arena, an overhead view of the whole thing, close-up of the seats. They weren't very comfortable. Here's Katrina entering the arena, Casey in the tunnels that ran around the inside of the walls, me in the tunnels. Just outside the arena was this crazy complex-looking machine. Our best guess was that it was to lift rocks and blocks and things like that. You can kind of see a metal statue of a guy on a horse in the background. We don't seem to have gotten a good photo of the actual statue, but we did get this nifty one of a shadow in the wall in the background. I think it looks kind of Trojan horse-esque. And that's the end of our first 3 days in Germany.